Welcome to the Screen Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you by Screen Daily and Screen International, looking at insights and analysis of the global film industry. I'm your host, Wendy Mitchell. I'm a contributing editor at Screen, and today I'm joined first by Louise Tutt, deputy editor, and Charles Gant, our awards and box office editor.
Hey, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. Hello. Today we're going to be talking a bit about international box office, what have been sort of the hits and the misses in recent months in certain territories, and also looking at why some films might have popped more than others. And of course, also looking at globally at which markets might be down, which are up, what we're seeing at the global box office, some of the big highlights of that. And we're also, in the second part of the podcast, I'll be talking to Jeremy Kay, our Americas editor, about the recently wrapped American film market back in LA. People are very happy that it's not in Vegas anymore, and we'll talk to him about if that was good for business. So let's start with this box office. Charles, you, as I said, you're our box office editor at Screen, and you really know a lot of this, so we're going to start with you. And I'm wondering, I think the first question is, as I mentioned, we want to first look at original content, because I think we all might know, okay, Minecraft did well, but what about some of the original films we're seeing, and how have they been performing? So Charles, can you start us with some of that?
The autumn is a time when you actually might see some original content like being released in cinemas, because obviously we have the summer blockbuster season, which is very dominated by existing IP. And you do tend to get that happening a lot over the kind of Christmas period. So I'm looking at the global chart. And actually, there have been this year some really encouraging outcomes for original IP. Sinners, Ryan Coogler's Sinners is one of them. That came out earlier in the year. Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. Opinions differ about whether or not that is going to lose a lot of money. I think that the box office for that is not over yet, and there's all of the ancillary to come. And then you have got Weapons, which came out. It was kind of very late summer release, and that has done 268 million, which worldwide, which are those are good numbers. However, I am looking at the global chart for the year. And, the reality is that existing IP dominates that chart. And in fact, it's the top 13 films are all based on existing. There are the sequels, and that chart is led by Nija 2, the Chinese animation, which is a sequel, or number 2 is Lilo and Stitch, which is a live action remake of a Disney animated film, a Minecraft movie based on a video game. The list goes on. So, we do have to remember that although, Sinners has done very well to be the 14th highest grossing film of the year worldwide, that's not in the top 10.
Could some of these films, I hope, get an awards bump? I'm hoping especially for the PTA, because I do think, as we head into BAFTA and Oscar season, that film, voters love this film. Audiences have really loved this film. So this could have a longer life, right?
Yeah, I can see it having a long life. A movie like Conclave, which came out in Q4 last year, carried on all the way through to the Oscar, the BAFTA Film Awards and the Oscars. And I can see this film being, pushed on, particularly on the kind of premium formats, doing like lots of IMAX screenings and is it VistaVision screenings? I think that will be happening, as, think about it. The Golden Globes will be happening. The Oscar nominations will be happening. The BAFTA nominations will be happening. So we'll definitely be seeing some opportunities for all of the awards contenders and probably Sinners as well, actually. Sinners is back in UK cinemas, not this weekend, but the weekend before. They had some of the talent in, and that they were getting some, big audiences.
Anime, Charles, is having a good year.
For sure.
Has this been a growing trend over the past few years? Has anime just sort of been growing globally?
I think it has been growing globally. I think it's gone a little bit unnoticed. I was at Cine Europe, so it was actually Cine Europe 2024, and they did a special presentation on anime, and it was interesting. And they were looking at it as a whole sort of genre category. and really feeling the need to kind of explain to the cinema operators, gathered in the room in Barcelona, that this is a big thing. You can program it in your cinemas, sometimes at less obvious times, to still connect with audiences. So Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle, I mean, that came out a while ago, and it's been, it was initially in Japan, then it was in some Asian markets, then Sony Crunchyroll released it in North America, the Americas region and Europe. And now it just at the weekend released in China, taking more than $50 million in China. The film is back up at number 2 in the worldwide box office chart, just below Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the new release from Lionsgate. And they're now at 730 million worldwide.
Wow. And still going,
And
right?
oh, you God, yeah. I mean, it's not over
Yeah,
yet. I mean,
yeah.
particularly in China, there's plenty more life in it. So that is the 5th highest grossing film. Now, the reason I didn't call that original IP is it is based on existing manga and you know anime intellectual property. But that is still a fantastic outcome. And there are, actually currently in the global top 10, there are 3 anime titles. There's Demon Slayer, there's Chainsaw Man, the movie Reze Arc, and there's Jujutsu Kaisen Execution. And that is becoming like increasingly, I wouldn't say it's becoming usual, but it's sort of like feels like that's not that unusual or not that surprising to see that happening, because these films are working in markets all over the world.
Yeah. And this is not even mentioning the Netflix hit K-pop Demon Hunters, which I finally watched. And as we know, Netflix has had some success after the film's platform release, bringing it into cinemas. This is probably something for another episode that we'll look at that strategy and how that worked. One of the openers that people were anticipating last weekend was Edgar Wright's new version of The Running Man. And I'm just curious how you think that did. Also compared to another Stephen King adaptation, The Long Walk, that, was this probably a much tougher film to watch kids being shot as they walk along a road. Spoiler alert. But first of all, just how did Running Man do? Will they be happy with how it launched?
I think Paramount will not be thrilled, to be honest with you, with the outcome on The Running Man, particularly as it went head to head with Lionsgate's Now You See Me, Now You Don't. And there was I think there was a certain question of, are people excited for a third Now You See Me movie? The last one was 2016. It's the 3rd film in what felt like potentially a tied franchise. Oh my God, we were wrong to think that, because that movie opened worldwide on $75.5 million, did really, really, really well in a ton of markets, did really well in China. And The Running Man, I think, had a bit of bad luck in a way because of the release strategy. It didn't open yet in France, Brazil, Spain, South Korea, China, Japan. So the $28 million opening, which is sort of just a little more than over a third of Now You See Me's number. That's not the whole story. This felt like it was meant to be a much bigger movie than The Long Walk was, because as you rightly say, The Long Walk is a bunch of young men walking down a road, talking and being shot. And that is what it is. That is the book. It's all going to take place, not in the same location, but if they deviate from the road, they're out. So it was kind of quite art house in sensibility, I thought. And it's done really well. I mean, it's done, $60 million worldwide. It's done £5 million in the UK. And The Running Man, I mean, we'll see where it gets to. But I thought the outcomes on those 2 films would be wildly different by the ends of their run. And it's not going to be, I don't think, anything like the huge disparity that I had predicted it was going to be.
Yeah. So we'll see if The Running Man can keep running. I mean, people love Glenn Powell, myself included. That's probably the main reason I went to see it the last weekend, because Glenn Powell, why
Well,
not?
this was a big test for his box office power. And I think that's the other thing that people are looking at, because, people didn't see, Anyone But You was a massive surprise hit. And that was with him and Sydney Sweeney, and it was him in a romantic comedy. Then you have him in Hitman, which is Netflix, the movie, which was, on Netflix, so but not really much in cinemas. Then you have him in Twisters, which was a hit, but it did have like the brand value of Twister in it, and it was a big, effects driven film. So I think there was a lot more resting on his star power. So, I think that the team Glenn Powell are definitely going to want this film to get to a bigger number, because this is really about, is he the next Tom Cruise? And based on these numbers, it's like, well, we need to see him, I think we'll need to see him do well in his next couple of movies before we're actually kind of acclaiming him as the sort of movie star that we all, frankly, Hollywood studios want him to be and need him to be.
Let's also go back to originals, but looking in the UK. And Louise, I know you've been looking at this a bit.
UK box office is doing well this year compared to last year, which is good news all round. It's got 3 UK films in the top 10 alone. Interesting, they're all based on existing IP. They're all the latest films in the franchises. Bridget Jones, Downton Abbey, 28 years later. But then it gets a bit more interesting. We Live in Time, which is original, or is it based on a book?
You know what, Louise?
Charles.
It is original. And it's funny you should say that, because when I saw the film, I thought, well, this must be based on a book, because who would make a romantic drama in this day and age, which didn't have. And actually, it is totally original.
Yeah, I just suddenly had a doubt, because you're right. It feels like it's based on a book. But then I think one of the big success stories of the year, the local films, is this Kirk Jones film, I Swear, which has made in dollars over $7 million in the UK. And it's interesting talking about original IP, because it's based on the real story of a Tourette's campaigner, and it's a very sort of heartwarming, uplifting, but quite difficult in places film. And I believe that there have been several documentaries about it as well, but arguably it's original IP. Audiences don't particularly know that this is, they don't know the story of John. They don't know this story. Charles, what's your feeling on what is original IP and not?
Yeah, no, I would say I Swear is definitely counts as original, because they might have optioned the the TV documentaries that John Davidson appeared in. But yeah, this is definitely original. And so in pounds, this has done nearly £6 million already. And I think that is a fantastic number. And I have to say, when I sent my reaction to the Studio Canal after seeing the film in the summer, I was like, I really like this film. I really think it's quite tough to market it to audiences. So I was being a little bit like, oh, if you get it right, then great, but it's going to be quite tricky to do. So they were like, just basically, I got an email back that pretty much said, Charles, just you watch. And they've done an absolutely brilliant job. And I think the poster is great. I think the materials are great. And I guess my slight pessimism was, is this the kind of, sort of escapist fare people are looking for? It is uplifting, and people have really sort of embraced the uplifting part of the film.
Charles, I was at that same screening as you this summer, that like sort of
Yeah.
early reaction screening. And I think I had similar concerns. I mean, it's, by the nature of it, it's very sweary.
Mhm.
The character is not always 100% likable, or it can be hard to identify with some of these situations. But yeah, ultimately it's a very uplifting story, and I think people want that now.
Mhm.
And amazing acting also. I mean, I did react
Mm.
with that this guy, is it Robert Aramayo?
Yeah.
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 He is a real find. I think we're going to see him in BAFTA conversations, I hope. I also think this is definitely popped out of that usual sort of art house market. I mean, I overheard some older ladies at the train station yesterday saying, "Have you seen I Swear?" And it really is that film that's sort of going to pop out. People who don't even maybe normally go to the cinema will hear about it. My husband was dying to see this film when he heard about it. So yeah, I think this has got longer legs, I hope.
Well, if we're calling that original, which is great, one of the other big success stories, the UK homegrown films this year, is The Penguin Lessons, which is based on a memoir. But again, I'm not sure that anybody is going to the cinema to see that because they love the memoir. I mean, all kudos to the memoir, but it's not the equivalent of The Salt Path or something where there was big built-in recognition for that film. So I think, I mean, The Penguin Lesson has done really well. It's also done well in certain European territories like Germany, actually. I mean, Marching Powder's done well. You could argue that you know very much what you're getting with that. It's Nick Love,
Danny Dyer.
and it's called Marching Powder, but it is it's original, and let's not quibble. And then Ballad of Wallace Island, $3.3 million, not sure what that is in pounds, and actually it might be a little bit more than 3.3 by now, but I mean, that's again another homegrown original IP directed by James Griffiths, a very UK story. Again, it's quite uplifting. It's with actors who are well known to the target audience anyway, I'd argue. And then the final one I would point out as original IP, again based on a true story, is Warfare, if we count that as original IP, which I guess we do. People don't really know that story, but I think that's why the UK is having a good year. The box office is tracking higher this year compared to last year. As of this moment, there's still time to go, of course,
And Wicked to come.
Which is pre-selling very well.
Wicked is selling very well, but of course we had a Wicked movie last year at exactly the same point in the year. My kind of slight worry for the UK and Ireland box office this year is that we're currently 5% ahead of 2024 at the same stage. So that is good news. But if you look at the box office chart for last year, 5 of the top 10 films from 2024 were released in Q4. And they were Wicked, they were Paddington 2, Gladiator 2, Mufasa the Lion King, and there's one more. Oh yeah, Moana 2. So, we need to match, in order to stay ahead of last year, we need a really, really good Q4. We do have an Avatar film, which, the cinemas are very excited about, and we do have a Wicked film, but it's actually possible that we might end up not up on last year, which considering we're meant to be recovering from the COVID pandemic year on year and like growing the box office, clawing our way back to where we were in 2019. If we don't grow this year, that will feel like a big blow to everyone. So we will see. We should reconvene in January and see where we landed.
Yeah. Okay. Good idea.
Looking outside the UK, which has obviously had this very strong year with all these UK titles, a strong year for UK titles, I'll say, Charles, with all your caveats about how the rest of the year might play out. I mean, you can see the importance of local films to keeping the box office going and attracting local audiences in France, which had an extremely strong 2024 with 3 films in the top 10, compared to this year, where the box office is down something like 14-15% year on year to, I think, the end of October, and with only 1 French film in the top 10. And last year, the 3 films, 2 of those were original IP, Little Something Extra, which was an absolutely huge hit. 74 point something million dollars in France last year. And then there was a Count of Monte Cristo, which is slightly different because that's again massively well-known IP with $39 million. But then this original Lelouch film, Beating Hearts, which was a musical. It was a love story. It was a Cannes. And that was in French top 10 last year with $35 million. Whereas this year, the highest grossing French film is the 4th highest grossing film of the year so far. It's called, the lovely title, God Save the Touche, $23 million so far. And the French box office, French cinemas are really struggling. The CNCs had to step in to help support the cinemas with their very generous, support they give to distributors, and it is showing the need for strong local titles when we know that far fewer US titles are being released year on year now.
I was just going to add in with that, in a similar vein, poor South Korea is Screen reported, Mike Rosser, your Asia editor, reported this summer that South Korea is heading for its worst box office performance in 2 decades, partly because they haven't had those local films that have overperformed, like you said, Louise. So it's a worry there. Do we know any territories where local films are really going super well? Actually, I know one I can say, which is Saudi Arabia. As we know, this is a sort of
Yeah.
nascent box office territory. They didn't have cinemas for decades, and they're back. And they're what's encouraging is they're making more local films, and local audiences. The overall box office is growing there, but also local audiences are seeing those local films. Local box office share this year in Saudi is 23% so far. Even though only 4% of the releases are Saudi made. They love comedy, they love action. I think the biggest hit is a comedy called Shabab Al Bon 2. So that's obviously a sequel. But that's, good news for those audiences to be seeking out the local productions, and that's good for the whole ecosystem. One other UK original, well, is it original? It's very, very loosely adapted from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but probably the most loose adaptation we have ever had. I mean, I am including the Muppets in that.
Which was very
Is
faithful.
Yes, but Gurinder Chadha's Christmas Karma, released by True Brit. I mean, I have been tracking this film since it was announced, probably a year and a half ago, because it just sounds so wildly different would be the polite word, or sort of a little bit crazy. I mean, it's got Danny Dyer, it's got Hugh Bonneville, it's got Priyanka Chopra doing a song, I believe. It is all over the place. I haven't seen it yet because I'm determined to see it in a cinema with a big audience, preferably most of those people being drunk, as with myself, because I think that might be the best way to see this film. But I really am genuinely encouraged to see it because it sounds so different. Charles, how did it start off, and where could this be one of those critic-proof hits that people are just looking for a bit of something different over Christmas?
Well, it kind of feels like it's the first sort of proper Christmas film, like out of the gates. So, True Brit stole a march on the market by releasing it in the middle of November. First of all, someone sent me the Friday number on the film, which was actually bad. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. But actually, Saturday and Sunday were pretty good. And it just sort of goes to show that I think it's getting a family audience. And Gurinder Chadha has her fans. I think she'll be getting a significant British Asian audience for this film. And I think that audience, is quite a family-driven audience, and it would be going out at the weekend, so rather than on Friday evening. So they ended up with like £488,000, from about 34 cinemas. So it wasn't like it isn't terrible. And the other thing to note is that Christmas films do tend to start quite soft because they often come out in like early November or the middle of November, where people have not quite yet caught that feeling of it's beginning to feel a bit like Christmas. So if you haven't started, buying your Christmas cards, and you haven't started really thinking much about Christmas, you're not quite ready to go and see this film. What they'll be hoping for is if they can hang on to their screens, that they're gonna like carry on through all the way up to Christmas Day. So it's by no means over yet. The critics have had their say; they were not kind, but audiences will decide.
It's also got a really strong ancillary life, hasn't it, ahead of it? I mean, however it might end up doing at the box office, there's every chance it's going to do really well for years and years and years
On
on a
TV, on
platform, on
platforms.
TV somewhere. Yeah.
I mean, look at Nativity. That film is just going and going and going so many years later here in the UK.
I mean, Nativity actually did do very well at the
Well,
box
yeah.
office, but yeah, it has these. But some people are sniffy about it, and in the same way that Christmas Karma, some people might be sniffy about it, like the critics. I mean, students, teenagers, kids. I mean, they're the ones that drive these films. Often the ones that really drive these films and really give them enduring cult status. I mean, my kids are 19 and 15, and they love those nativity films, for example. They watch them over and over and over and over.
Actually, even in cinemas, or when you look what gets released in cinemas in December, all of the Christmas films, and I'm including Die Hard, I'm including Gremlins and other films. Patricia Highsmith adaptation with Cate Blanchett. I'm including Carol in that because it's set in the run up to Christmas. So you get all of these films out in cinemas, and It's a Wonderful Life takes a lot of money every year. Now, I'm not saying Christmas Karma is necessarily going to ascend to that pantheon of hallowed Christmas classic, but The Holiday, when that came out, critics didn't like The Holiday, and look at that. That is now a Christmas classic, and it's back in cinemas every year, and people love it.
Well, I plan to get a magnum of Prosecco and some friends, and maybe I'll have a mince pie by then. But yeah, I also can see Christmas Karma, as you said, Charles, working with families. And I don't just mean families with kids, but I mean like it's a film you can take granny to when you're all spending the holidays together. So I'm going to go straight into the crazy. I'll report back on my experience with Christmas Karma. But this has been fascinating to learn a little bit about especially original ideas at the box office, what's been working, what's not. And I'm sure we'll be keeping tabs on this at Screen Daily. So keep reading Screen Daily for more box office insights. I guess now's the time I'm going to say goodbye to Charles and Louise. We'll see you again soon.
Cheers,
See you,
Wendy.
Wendy.
And now I'm going to join Jeremy Kay in LA. Now we're coming to our friend Jeremy Kay, Screen's US and America's editor. Jeremy, you've had a very busy couple of weeks, always very busy couple of weeks with Jeremy Kay, but the American film market returned to Los Angeles, I hear, Jeremy, and we just wanted to catch up with you a little bit about how it was. From what I've been hearing, it was better received than Las Vegas last year.
Yeah, it was. It's great to be here. Great to see you, Wendy. It was better received. I mean, that's not a hard act to follow because people hated Vegas, but they really seemed to nail the location because it was in Century City, which is centrally located in Los Angeles, very near to the agencies, and all the attendees can go off and do their meetings after the market. And the hotel, the Fairmont, was really popular. There was a real buzz there. People were busy in their offices having meetings all day, but also the lobby area was always full, which is what I remember seeing at the Lowe's when I first started attending these markets. And people were having drinks and hanging out for the afternoon and the evening, so it felt like there was real life and activity to it.
Okay, good. Well, I also think the Fairmont has the potential to be maybe a little classier than some of the crowds at the Lowe's. I mean, I do remember a very eye-opening one of my first trips to AFM, and this would have been 20 years ago probably, but sort of women walking around in leather bikinis trying to sell their straight-to-video film. And I think a Fairmont is maybe going to have a slightly classier crowd in it. Is that true?
Yeah, I think your average Fairmont attendee maybe would wear different garb. There were definitely people there who are, hawking their film project and maybe not the kinds of veteran producers who are at these markets who we will write about. But on the whole, it was, it was quite a classy sort of gathering. And the first few days of the event, the weather was beautiful. It got a bit rainy in the last day or two and over the weekend, but they were able to spread out into the courtyard area and they were serving food. And you could take the escalator to the mall across the road where the screenings were taking place at the AMC.
Oh, great. Okay, so that's a bit better connected than in some past years.
Yeah, it really was. That's a 5-minute walk, and it had a villagey feel because the buyers were around the screening venue, and they were also sort of decamped around the food court. So there was a real campus feeling to it, which is really refreshing to see.
With dislocation, as you said, maybe it's more centrally located. Is that ever a curse that people aren't just staying there all day doing their meetings? Are they also running off to agencies? Or is that just good for international people coming into town that they can do all of it during their AFM week, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I mean, people may have been taking meetings in the day, but as I say, they look like steady foot traffic throughout the day. And I think people found that, very, very appealing. There are, of course, always the comments from our Eastern European friends who like a beach in November. But that's a 20-minute cab ride away. And I should say on the subject of cabs, people loved the driverless Waymo taxis. People couldn't get enough of them. They were pulling up to the hotel. The screen team was downloading the app and taking a few rides on them. That was a real talking point.
Jeremy, one place or multiple places that some of those driverless taxis might have been going is, I think you've reported that some of the big companies didn't go to the Fairmont. And do we know why and where did they go? And was that easy for buyers to navigate?
Yeah, there were a few companies that went off-site, and this has been happening for years. I think Film Nation were at the Avalon, which is a hotel nearby, and then also 193, Black Bear, and A24 were off-site. I heard one of them was at the Waldorf Astoria hotel nearby, and a couple of the others took residences. And they've done this before. I heard at the Vegas AFM in 2024, everyone was at the Palms Casino, but A24 were high up in the penthouse area and they had extra security just because they've got such a busy schedule. They don't want walk-ins. So, take that how you will. I know a lot of people on site will go to these other venues, but begrudgingly because it's time out of their busy day at the Fairmont. So you've got to get a Waymo, as you say, and then go 20 minutes somewhere else, 15 minutes somewhere else. They do it, I think, because they know they've got enough meetings and they just do not want those walk-ins, I guess.
Yeah, I can see how it kind of, and I think people like do this in Cannes. Goodfellas, probably. They're not in the basement of the Palais, are they? I think we see it more in Cannes, but do you think that will continue next year? I guess if they're the big players, people are going to come to them.
I think it will. I think it will continue. And by the way, there were plenty of big players on site at the Fairmont. You've got your Lionsgate, you've got your AGC, Voltage. I mean, all there's plenty of big companies were there too. This is just the way it is. People, buyers complained about it, but they still got in those taxis and went over there and took their meetings.
But let's also get down to business, because it's not just about the food court, much as I fancy one. It is about was attendance good? Were people actually buying and selling? I mean, Jean Pruitt seems positive in her remarks, but president of IFTA for her final edition. But how did you see the market? Did it feel busy in terms of actual business?
I think it was, but the whole cadence of these markets has changed, as we know. So gone are the days of, lots and lots of big sales announcements coming in every day. We had a few, but we started off with some sales on the Magic Faraway tree, but they would have been done before the market. There were some deals on the Anthony Hopkins movie, A Visit to Grandpa, which West End is selling. That's out there. But I think generally speaking, these things take a lot longer to close, as you know, Wendy. I mean, it might take weeks, it might take months. It could be the start of a conversation that continues at Berlin or even Cannes. But, you speak to the sellers and the buyers and they say, it's just good to sit down and to see people and, see old friends, new friends, and just get a lot of business on the books.
Yeah, and AFM, I think, has always been good for that. And I think, it sounds like this year people were positive about who attended. Jeremy, do you know if many people canceled their trip over fears about this government shutdown that was impacting the flights? Or did you hear of people that had to cancel their trips?
I personally didn't hear of people cancelling because of that. And by the way, the traffic chaos that we were promised didn't really come.
Good.
We didn't really I didn't hear any stories. There may be the odd incident. I hope not, but we didn't hear that on the whole. We heard that generally attendance from the Middle East and parts of Latin America was quite light, but that may also be because people in those regions are attending, events in their parts of the world. But I think on the whole, it looked busy, as I say. I don't have any attendance numbers yet. We'll get those from IFTA, the market organizer, and we'll report those when we can. But as far as I can tell, there was no traffic chaos. People made it. People got through quite easily.
It does sound really positive and encouraging that AFM is back in LA at a venue that worked well. And we did see, as you mentioned, the business has changed. You're not seeing like 100 deals closed during that week. Or maybe there are 100 small deals closed, of course. But, these big projects, but they're launched for AFM. And maybe we can just talk about some of those big packages? Because there were quite a few announced. And did those feel kind of healthy? And did those seem to get good response, even if they're not closed deals yet?
Yeah, they did. And as you say, it's coming. Maybe there are some closing now, but there were a few that really stood out. Lionsgate had The Resurrection of the Christ, Mel Gibson's epic 2-part follow-up to The Passion of the Christ.
Yes.
And I hear that was a big draw.
Okay.
And I understand that, offers are in, people are circling territories for that, as you'd expect. Some other big ones were AGC had Phantom Sun, a Renee Zellweger psychological thriller. That was popular. Steady stream of buyers coming and talking about that, apparently. Film Nation had Bad Bridget's.
Yeah, this one sounds fun.
Yeah, this is the Rich Pepiat, his follow-up to Kneecap.
Yeah, we love Kneecap, don't we, Jeremy?
We love Kneecap, and he's an exciting filmmaker, and as one would expect, people were responding to that.
And that's Film Nation, you said.
That's
Yes.
Film Nation selling it, yeah. So those were those are some big ones. I mean, there are others, of course, and another one worth mentioning is Black Bear are selling the narrative version of Ibelin, which was this beautiful documentary
Beautiful
in Sundance.
documentary for Netflix
Yes.
last year. Yeah, and I love that director, Benjamin Ree. Great Scandinavian documentary maker. But yeah, Evelyn is very much ripe for this fiction treatment. And I think you said Morten Tildum, the director, was in town to
Yeah,
pitch it.
he was in town for a presentation, and I heard nothing but good things from people. People were just texting, people were responding to text, and were very impressed by what they saw and heard. So maybe we'll get some sales coming out of that. Maybe it's this kind of business will continue on into the EFM in Berlin. But very impressed with that. And, interestingly, Morten Tildum was the only big name I heard of that was coming into a presentation. You'd think, being in Hollywood in LA, there'd be a lot of stars dropping by, but maybe they're all shooting movies outside of California.
Yeah, no, I do remember that year, Ron Howard was around pitching Rush. Sometimes you do, because it's in LA, you get the right people coming to schmooze the buyers a little bit. And yeah, that's a little surprising. Maybe
Yeah.
next year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think also you've been reporting that the new Jane Schonbrun film, which is called Teenage Sex and Death in Miasma or something.
Yes, Camp Miasma.
Camp Miasma, yes, thank
Yes.
you. That is being sold by the Match Factory. Mubi is financing that, which is, of course, the sister company to the Match Factory. And Mubi's handling a slew of territories, but it sounds like they were saying that went down really well with buyers, that we'll probably see some more deals announced. So yeah, you said maybe there weren't so many celebs around, but that AFM week is also a really nice moment to catch up with people, maybe people in town for awards season. And yeah, did you do any nice social events that were on at the either official AFM or just sort of side events? Did you do anything
Yeah.
fun?
Yeah, I mean, lots of drinks with people there, and I was doing that through the weekend as well. And by the way, it was good to see still a lot of foot traffic on Saturday and even some on Sunday. Screen hosted a nice little welcome event during the week at a restaurant nearby, and Hinoki and the Bird, and that went really well. We had lots of attendees from the market, lots of sellers and buyers coming along to that, and we had our little award season soiree.
Nice.
Later in the week after we'd finished the work in the office. And that's a good chance to catch up with award season consultants. And we had Will Clark from Altitude and some friends from sales companies who will have something to say in award season as well. So they were there too. Other than that, I heard there were lots of off-site events where sellers were taking their buyers out for dinner, which always happens. And of course, we had Glenn Basner on the pod before the
Yes.
AFM, listing all the restaurants that he was going to be
Yes.
taking his network to. So there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But by and large, I just saw lots of people in the lobby, in some of the nicer restaurants in the mall, and it just seemed to be quite a good flow. I mean, I chatted to Jean Pruitt, as you say, she's the present CEO of IFTA. It's her last year. But she seemed rightly very happy to have finally found a place that landed, and at least people seem to enjoy it this year. Let's see if they can extend the arrangement and do it here next year as well.
Before we let you go, Jeremy, I did want to talk about next year already. And, we never let anybody coast on one good year. It does sound like lots of positive reports for this year at AFM. But as we know, as we've talked about on this podcast, Jeremy, TIFF, the market, is going to be looming in the autumn next year. Were people talking about that? I mean, it sounds like if AFM is going so well, people see a future for AFM, or do they see a future for both? I mean, did you hear any chatter, or were people just mostly focused on this year's AFM rather than speculating about the future?
Fair amount of chatter, which I had to extract from people because they were mostly focused on the task at hand. But I think it's a mixed reaction to TIFF. We've written some pieces after TIFF with a lot of very, very stern remarks from people anonymously saying we don't want this. Others do, and I spoke to quite a few sales agents. I was on a panel with Jeffrey Greenstein, who is the founder of A Higher Standard, and he was saying, look, the more opportunities, the better. Whereas others are quite firmly saying, well, we like the AFM, this is where we're going to do our business. But I think what everyone's going to do is, without much information, because TIFF have been a little bit stingy with the information they're releasing, and they were there, by the way. I saw TIFF market staffers, huddling on site with people. People are going to go and are going to continue to treat TIFF the way they've always done, which is to watch it, use it primarily as a venue for completed film screenings, and opportunistically sell if they have something that's ready to be talked about.
Jeremy, thanks for the report on AFM. Glad to hear that LA welcomed its arms and that the Fairmont and Century City worked out. So thanks for telling us about it.
Great to be here, Wendy. Thanks.
Thanks again for tuning into the Screen Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Big thanks to the whole Screen team who helps put this together. Our podcast editor this week is Daisy Chaku. Thank you, Daisy. And our web editor is Orlando Parfit. Please do join us again. Our next episode will drop on December 4th. So do keep listening. We're grateful for you listening, and do subscribe and rate us. And we'll talk to you again soon.